and APS, we have to understand about the equilibrium of the economy. Remember when I started the chapter, I told you that this whole theory, this whole chapter is based upon finding the equilibrium of the economy. So now we come to the core part. But all those things that we have studied, they will be used here. If you have any doubt in understanding of those concepts, then you will face a problem in this, and you can simply say that it cannot be understood without understanding those other concepts and those other terms which we have learned. We have two approaches for the economy's equilibrium. AD-AS approach. As in the beginning I told you that economy will simply be in equilibrium when the aggregate demand is equal to aggregate supply. It says that economy reaches its equilibrium when AD is equal to AS. Second is the saving investment approach. Now remember, this saving investment approach has actually been derived from the AD-AS approach. Just see, AD is equal to AS, AD is C plus I and AS is C plus S, right? So C gets cancelled and we simply have I is equal to S. It means that if you can say that if the economy is in equilibrium, that is AD is equal to AS, then I will also be equal to S, and this is also a way of finding the equilibrium, one approach of finding the equilibrium. First we will study the AD-AS approach. Simply the meaning you can understand. AD is the value of the goods and services which all the buyers of an economy are willing to buy in a year, and AS is the value of the final goods and services which are produced in an economy. Okay, so here we show the national income. We keep the national income on the x-axis as for all the diagrams in this particular chapter. C, S and I on the y-axis. That is consumption, saving and investment on the y-axis. So this is the point where AD is equal to AS, or you can say that this is the point of equilibrium for an economy, right? And this is the equilibrium level of national income, and the state of employment at this point of national income is the level of employment or equilibrium level of employment. And as we did in the beginning of the chapter, that it is the equilibrium level of income and employment, as the name of the chapter is also this, determination of income and employment. But see, there can be two more possibilities, or you can say two more situations where the economy is not in equilibrium. This is the first condition. Suppose economy is operating at this level, so again the economy is not in equilibrium. Here AD is more than AS, and here AD is less than AS, right? So when you are showing this diagram, then you can, this is the complete diagram which is marking all the points, the point of equilibrium and the two disequilibriums for the economy. Now just remember that these equilibrium, or this equilibrium of the economy is self-reinforcing. Like when we were doing microeconomics, we saw that in a free market the equilibrium is self-reinforcing. If there is excess supply or excess demand, then certain changes take place in the market, and the market again returns into a equilibrium at a higher or a lower price. Here also the chain of effect are similar, the situations are similar, but the reactions are different, or you can say the things that will happen in the economy, they will be different as they happened for the market, because that we were talking only about a single market, but here we are talking about the whole economy, and here the changes will take in production rather than the price. Okay, so as we said that AD is equal to AS is the point of equilibrium, so we have two possibilities. First is AD greater than AS, and second is AD less than AS, right? So in both these situations we will have a chain of effect, and remember this chain of effect is important and is often asked in 6-mark question or sometimes in the 4-mark question. So first we will talk about the chain of effect for AD greater than AS. We can just simply understand here it means that the quantity which buyers are willing to buy is more than what the quantity what sellers are willing to sell, or simply it is excess demand, and in this situation it is excess supply. Now we will study the chain of effects or the changes which take place in an economy when AD is more than AS. We'll explain it with help of points. The first point that we need to mention is that it is a situation where what buyers are willing to buy is more than what sellers are willing to sell. Buyers are willing to buy more than what sellers are willing to sell. Second point would be it creates shortage of the product in the market and sellers are unable to maintain the desired level of inventory. See, desired level of inventory simply refers to the amount of goods which the particular seller or a producer would like to keep as his stock at every point of time to meet the changes in demand in the market. So due to the shortage of the product, the sellers are unable to maintain their desired level of stocks and they have to provide the commodity into the market. Just see that they are the first 2 points are almost same, or rather they are same as they are in microeconomics. Then from the third point in microeconomics we say that the price would rise, but here the change will be different. Here what would happen is that the producers will plan to produce more in next time period. Means suppose we are talking about the situation in 2016, so in the next year, that is 2017, producer will try to or plan to produce more commodities, more units, because they are seeing that they are facing a shortage of the product. Now to increase the production or to produce more, they will hire more factors of production. Means all the 4 inputs, all the 4 factors of production will be required in more quantities, or you can say the 4 factor incomes will tend to rise. So it means that national income will tend to rise till it reaches the equilibrium level. Just recall the diagram. Okay, this was the point of equilibrium and this was the point where AD was more than AS, right? Now see, what our last conclusion is that national income will tend to rise till it reaches the equilibrium. Means national income will rise till this point and again the economy will reach its equilibrium. And this is you can say reinforcing equilibrium, or you can say that whenever the equilibrium will be disturbed in an economy, after some time it will again reach the point of equilibrium. Okay, this is the whole chain of effect which you have to explain, and if this is asked, you will also draw the diagram which supports your answer, that how the changes or what changes take place in an economy when AD is more than AS. Now when we talk about the other one, it is just the reciprocal. We'll discuss it. That is the chain of effects for AS less than AD less than AS. Now first point again it would be that it is a situation where buyers are willing to buy less than what? एक मिनट रुक, क्या ये भारी बात कर रहे क्या यहाँ? मना कर. Then second point would be that the sellers will have undesired inventory. Means they are not wanting this stock to be with them. They want to sell it, but it is not being sold into the market due to the lack of demand. So what the sellers would do, they would plan to produce less in the next time period. And see, when they want to produce less, then they will lay off the factors of production. Lay off factors of production means withdraw the factors of production from their production process or reduce the factors of production. Now if the factors of production are reduced, then what would happen to factor income? Factor income would tend to fall and national income would also tend to fall till it reaches the point of equilibrium. Again, just have a look at the diagram. Okay, this was a situation where AD was less than AS, right? And now national income tends to decrease and it will keep on decreasing till it reaches the point of equilibrium and economy again attains its point of equilibrium. So these are the two important chain of effects which might be asked from you, and you should always know them and understand them so that you can support your answers, and many type of questions can be based on these particular chain of effects. Okay, now we will talk about some concepts which are related to employment. And remember, for the I and S approach, I will draw the diagram for I and S approach. The chain of effect would be same. Remember, the saving curve always starts from negative. Again, I have national income on the x-axis and saving and investment on the y-axis. And remember, I also told you that when we take the investment, we take it as autonomous investment. You need not mark it here, but remember that it is always taken as this is autonomous investment. This is your origin. This is the autonomous consumption. This is the point where saving is 0. Till here saving is less than 0. After this point saving is more than 0, or even you need not mention this here. No need to mention this even. You can simply mark the point of equilibrium. This is the point of equilibrium for the economy. And again we have two situations. First is this. This is the point where I is more than S. And this is the point where I is less than S. Again, just remember the chain of effects would be similar. Just understand that I am more than S. Now see, I is contained in AD and S is contained in AS. So if I is more than AS, it would simply mean that AD is more than AS. While if I is less than S, then it would mean that AD is less than AS, because C is common in both. Just remember, consumption is common in both. So after understanding these two approaches, next we will talk about the employment, or we can say the full employment of in an economy. First of all, understand what is meant by full employment. Full employment simply means when all the factors of production in the economy are employed. means all the factors of production are in use, that is land, labor, capital and entrepreneurs, but we generally talk it in terms of the labor. It means none of the person who is willing to work is unemployed. This is a situation of full employment. Many of you would think that the economy can reach the equilibrium only when there is full employment, but it is not true. An economy may reach its equilibrium even when there is absence of full employment, or we can call it as underemployment. Underemployment means when some of the factors of production or some of the resources are unemployed or unutilized. Like suppose I have 1000 laborers in an economy and say 50 of them are not working. So this is a situation of underemployment, and if all 1000 are working, this is a situation of full employment. So you can simply understand that it is not necessary for an economy to be in equilibrium that full employment should be achieved. It can even attain the equilibrium level without attaining the full employment. Like take the example of India. You know that there is unemployment in India, but you cannot say that India will not be in equilibrium. It can be in equilibrium, and that is known as underemployment equilibrium. This concept was given by Keynes, that an economy generally remains at the underemployment equilibrium. We'll talk about it, how it occurs. First we'll understand the types of unemployment. Actually we have to differentiate only in two types of unemployment. You already know there are many types of unemployment. You've done it in class 11. But here we differentiate between voluntary and involuntary unemployment. See, voluntary unemployment means where a person is not willing to work, or you can say he has chosen to be unemployed. He doesn't want to work. Involuntary is, voluntary you can understand, if I say that I want some volunteers for some work, so it means that who are already willing to do themselves. Okay, no pressure on anybody. So this is the unemployment which is due to the people who do not want to work. There may be various reasons for that. Then involuntary unemployment is actually the true unemployment, where a person who is able to work, willing to work, but doesn't find work, or you can say employment, right? That is true situation of involuntary unemployment. So this theory simply says that there may or may not be the presence of involuntary unemployment, but always there will be some voluntary unemployment in each and every economy. In every economy you will find few people who do not want to work, that is they voluntarily remain unemployed. Then another type of unemployment which is generally seen in the economies is frictional unemployment. Frictional unemployment means that when a person is frictional unemployment means a situation when a person is switching over jobs. Suppose a person is working in company A and he wants to change to company B. So the time lapse between this phase will be known as frictional unemployment. So these are the two types of unemployment which always you would find in an economy. And this may or may not be present in an economy. Like in case of India, you might say that it is present. So remember that it is not necessary. It is again an important question, that is it necessary that economy can reach its equilibrium only at full employment? So you should be able to answer it that no, it is not necessary. An economy can be in equilibrium even at underemployment level. That is the where all the resources are not fully employed. And if it is a long question in 6 marks, then you mention these types of unemployment also, that these are the types of unemployment which may be prevailing in any economy. The next topic that we have to study is another important topic which is often asked in 4 mark and 6 mark question. derivation of the straight line saving curve from straight line consumption curve. As we did yesterday that the consumption curve, saving function can be derived from the saving function can be derived from the consumption function. Similarly, saving curve can also be derived from a consumption curve. Under this topic, the steps are important. Okay, you have to remember the steps, and they are easy. You are just defining what you are doing. First of all, you mark a straight line consumption curve and an income curve. Remember, this is the break-even point where income is equal to consumption. Now just perpendicularly below it, you mark another graph with x and y axis. Here we are showing consumption and here we are showing national income, and here we are showing saving and here we are showing national income. Right? Now just see, this is the part which is autonomous consumption. Mark this point as A. It means the distance OA is resembling autonomous consumption. Now suppose the income of a person is 0, then his saving will also be equal to minus sign accompanied with the autonomous consumption that we have done yesterday also, because y is equal to c plus s. So this will be my point showing A reflex and showing the autonomous consumption on the y axis, on the axis for the saving curve or on the saving curve. Then second, you mark the break even point. Remember, at break even point saving will be equal to 0. So suppose this I mark as point B. So this point will be B reflex. Now any point C, which is showing me positive saving or s greater than 0. Now what you do is, don't mark C reflex first you join point A reflex and B reflex with a straight line. You can use your scale to draw a straight line, and here you mark point C reflex, and this is your required saving curve. Actually what we have done is, we have just represented three situations. First situation is S is equal to minus C bar, that occurs when y is equal to 0. Second situation, we have shown S equal to 0, that is where C is equal to y. And third situation, we have seen S shown S more than 0, where income is more than consumption. This situation can also be called as S less than 0 or S is in negative. So we simply depicted this situation for any point here lying on this region from point A reflex to B reflex, that is S is less than 0, here S is equal to 0, and here S is greater than 0. Right? These are the situations which I have shown. And when I am asked this particular question, and remember, along with this question you will have a statement stating the steps clearly. Okay, so it means that marks will be awarded only when you have written the steps. First step would be draw a straight line consumption curve along with the income curve and mark the break even point on it. Then second step would be draw the graph for, or draw the axis for the saving curve perpendicularly below this consumption curve. Then third point would be mark point A on the consumption curve showing autonomous consumption, and mark point A reflex on the saving curve showing S is equal to minus C bar perpendicularly below point A. This This would be your third step. Then fourth step would be mark point B on the consumption curve showing the break even point or S is equal to 0. Here I can say S is equal to or S is less than 0. Then mark point B reflex on the saving curve depicting same S is equal to 0. And again perpendicularly below, this you need to mention in every point, perpendicularly below the origin or original point, that is A perpendicularly A dash perpendicularly below A, B dash or B reflex perpendicularly below to B, and C reflex perpendicularly below to C. Fifth point would be, or fifth step would be, mark point C on the consumption curve showing S greater than 0 or Y more than consumption. Then mark point C reflex showing S greater than 0 on the saving curve, again perpendicularly below point C. And last point would be join A reflex, B reflex and C reflex to get the desired saving curve. You can just go through all the points. Okay, these are the important points or important steps that you need to mention along with this question. Again I am repeating, important question may be asked for 4 marks or may be asked for 6 marks. These steps you can frame yourself. These are the key points, keywords which I have told you, which you have to mention in your steps. Similarly, we can also have the derivation of the saving consumption curve from the saving curve. So in that case we will draw the saving curve first. I will draw the diagram here, and steps you can note down, they would be same as we have done for this particular derivation. So next would be derivation of the straight line saving curve, straight line consumption curve from the straight line saving curve. Again just remember the logic would be on the 3 situations, or you can simply say that this is also based on Y is equal to C plus S. So we can also derive the straight line consumption curve from a straight line saving curve. So in this case we will first draw the saving curve. Okay, again national income on the x-axis, saving on the y-axis. This is the point of origin. Again just see, we will draw axis for the consumption curve. Just below the saving curve, perpendicularly below the saving curve. Now there is a simple trick. First you just mark the break even point on the income line. And then you draw the consumption curve. Again this part, suppose this is point A representing. Okay, so first you mark the break even point. This will be marked as point A. This will be marked as point A reflex C bar. When you are writing the step, then again you will write it as in the same way. Mark point A on the saving curve depicting the autonomous consumption, and mark point A reflex on the for the consumption curve on the y-axis depicting the autonomous consumption. Second you will mark point B, then B reflex, it will be your break even point. Third you will mark any point C, and any point C reflex on the consumption curve. Same steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Then last point again would be join A reflex, B reflex and C reflex with a straight line to get the desired consumption curve. Again these two are important derivations of the various curves from one another, and they are important for 4 mark and 6 mark question. Next important topic that we have to study is investment multiplier. Investment multiplier, see, it works similar to the money multiplier which we have already done when we were doing the part of banking. Just understand what it means. It is denoted by K. and it simply says that whenever any investment is done in an economy, the result of that investment would be change in national income or rise in national income. We can simply understand if investment is done, it increases the profitability or profit making ability of the economy or production capacity of the economy. So the national income would tend to rise. But we have to understand that the change in the national income would be in number of times. Like for example, I can simply make it little easier. Say if I do investment of 100 rupees in an economy, the change in the national income will not be 100 but it would be more than 100. Maybe it is 300. So it means that the value of investment multiplier is 3 times, or simply I can write as 3. Right? So if I define it, if I want to define investment multiplier, I will say it is the number of times the investment is multiplied in an economy to get the change in national income. Delta resembles the change. You can simply understand here that the increase in income is 3 times the increase in investment. So here the value of multiplier will be 3, and the definition you can just again have a look at the number of times investment is multiplied in an economy to get the change in national income. We'll now just see that how it works, because you have to understand that how this multiplier is working in an economy. Only then you can understand the whole concept, because this is a very important concept and many questions are framed from this topic. Like say a company does an investment of say 10 crores in the economy, say company ABC Limited. Okay, so what does it mean? That the income of that company would rise, or you can say it has put up a new project, new plant. So more people will be employed, say maybe 4 people, A, B, C, D. Right? There is some increase in their incomes, income tend to rise. Now what now A is also doing consumption in the economy, buying from various people, maybe say from E, D and E, F, G, maybe say he buys milk from him, maybe say transportation service from him, maybe say garments from him, and so on. Again, this person also would do expenditure, so their income also tends to rise, because expenditure of one becomes income for the other. What A spends and buys from E, F and G leads to rise in the incomes of E, F and G. Similarly, when E will do his consumption, then also he will do with various persons. Right? So like this a tree is formed, or a chain is formed under each and every individual. So you can just see that the rise in the national income or the rise in the income would be more than the rise in the investment, because it will have a trickle down effect. It leads to increase in the income of many people who may not be directly employed in that particular investment. This is how the investment multiplier works, and you always have to keep this working into your mind to understand it in a better way, and it is based on a simple logic that expenditure of one person becomes income for the other. Now if you are asked to define it, to tell about the working of the multiplier, so you can just theoretically explain it in this way, that take an example that a company invests some amount of money, and the same way you can explain. But one thing that you have to notice is that this whole concept depends on how the people are using their increased income. Right? Suppose person C's income increases by say 10,000. But he doesn't spend that money. He says, no, I'll keep whole 10,000 as my saving. I'll not, or his delta C is 0. He has not increased his consumption. So what this would mean is there would be no such chain formed under person C. So it simply tells me that this whole concept would depend on change in consumption with change in income, or you can simply say it would depend on marginal propensity to consume. More the marginal propensity to consume, more will be the multiplication in the investment of the economy. Now we will move on to the numerical, you can say illustrations or derivations of the multiplier. way of finding the multiplier is k is equal to delta y by delta I. Suppose take the same example. Their income increased by rupees 300, investment was 100, so 300 upon 100, that would give you answer as 3. So value of multiplier comes out to be 3. Second is k is equal to 1 upon 1 minus MPC. This is also another formula for finding out the investment multiplier. We'll just derive this formula so that you come to know how this formula has been derived from simple equation. Then third is k is equal to 1 upon MPS. Okay, these are the three important formulas which will be used to when you are solving the numericals of this particular topic. Remember, in one question maybe one formula is needed or maybe more than one formula are needed. Say for example, sometimes MPS may be given to you and you have to find delta y. So in that case what you would do, first you will find the value of k, then you will put the value of k here in this formula, and in that case investment would be given to you. Okay, so when you come across the numericals, you have to remember that all the formulas may be used. Now another important topic from this chapter is topic is the derivation of the investment multiplier. From the equation y is equal to c plus I. Okay, see, it means that economy is in the condition of equilibrium. Remember that at equilibrium, saving is equal to investment, s is equal to y. So y is equal to c plus s or y is equal to c plus I, because I and s are equal when the economy is in equilibrium. So first I simply take this equation y is equal to c plus I. Now what you do is you simply put delta in or multiply all by delta. Putting delta in all the variables. Okay, so the equation would be satisfied. Delta y is equal to delta c plus delta I. Then third step would be you divide all by delta y. Divide the whole equation by delta y. So you will have delta y by delta y, delta c by delta y, and delta I by delta y. That is dividing the whole equation by delta y. Now see, delta y by delta y would give you 1, delta c by delta y equals to MP c, and delta I upon delta y is equal to 1 upon k. How 1 upon k? Because k is equal to delta y by delta I. So 1 upon k would be equal to delta I by delta y, or you can say it is the reciprocal of k. That is delta y by delta I by delta y, so I can write it as 1 by k. Now simply shift MPC on this side, 1 minus MPC is equal to 1 upon k. Then do the reciprocal of both the sides. So when you do the reciprocal, it will be 1 upon 1 minus MPC is equal to k. Okay, this is the whole derivation of the formula. K is equal to 1 upon 1 minus MPC, and it is also the derivation of k is equal to 1 upon MPS, because 1 minus MPC will be equal to MPS, as MPS plus MPC are equal to 1. Okay, so this is the whole working of the multiplier and the derivation. This is important derivation. It may be asked to you from in the questions. And the numericals of this particular topic are very important. Now I will give you all the formulas at one place, so which you will be using to solve your numericals. While solving those numericals, you have to keep all these formulas in mind and all the derivations in mind. And you also have to remember that these numericals can be solved only when you have understood the theory. It means you know the whole concept of the chapter. Okay, so the important formula which are required in this chapter. First formula is C is equal to C bar plus B into Y. That is the consumption equation which can be used to calculate C. Then y is equal to c plus s and when the economy is in equilibrium, y is also equal to c plus I. Then the formula of the propensity is APC C upon Y, APS S upon Y, and APC plus APS is equal to 1. Similarly for the MPC, that is delta C by delta Y, MPS, that is delta S by delta Y, and again MPC plus MPS is equal to 1. Then the formula for multiplier, delta Y by delta I, K is equal to 1 upon 1 minus MPC, and K is equal to 1 upon MPS. And remember, when the economy is in equilibrium, this would be given to you in certain questions that the economy is in equilibrium. So in that case you will use y is equal to c plus s, or y is equal to c plus I, or s is equal to I. All these things have to be remembered, that when an economy is in equilibrium we have the following things. So if investment is given to you, it means saving is given to you, and the other way around. These are the most important formulas that you will use in this chapter. And also remember that for the multiplier, that it is directly proportional to MPC. More the value of MPC, more will be the multiplier. Again, the value of multiplier can be infinity when MPC is equal to 1. Minimum value of multiplier will always be 1. It can never be 0. So the value of k can never be 0. Its minimum value will be 1. We can just illustrate it numerically. See, as we know, k is equal to 1 upon 1 minus MPC. So now suppose MPC is 1. It means that people have spent the whole increased part of their income, means delta C is equal to delta Y. So in that case, k will be equal to 1 upon 1 minus 1, that is 1 upon 0, equals to infinity, undefined, means infinite number of times the income will rise, because everybody is spending the increased part of the income. Then k can be 0, sorry, k can be 1 when MPC is 0. It means the people are not spending the money which they are getting in the form of increased income. Remember, like the person C, he denies to increase the or spend his increased income. So in this case, k will be equal to 1 upon 1 minus 0, that is 1 upon 1 equals to 1. So this is the minimum value, can never be less than 1, and this is the maximum value. And remember, it is directly related to MPC. Why I have shown it to you like this? Because true false are framed from this part. Okay, you can have a true and false question from this part, that what could be the minimum value of MPC, or you can have a 1 mark question, that what will be the value of k if say MPC is 1 or say MPC is 0. So you have to remember it. Okay, then the last topic that we have to talk about